All right, everybody. Thank you very much for coming back after lunch. This session is going to be, I hope, very entertaining and pretty useful to you as well. It's going to be a little bit interactive to keep that blood going right after lunch, so bear with me. Here's the obligatory About Me slide. I'm very big into open source, contributing to projects like Recon-ng, which we'll talk about in a little while, PwnWiki. I'm also a SANS instructor. I teach the web app hacking class. I work for a large consulting firm, and I love hiking and backpacking on the Appalachian Trail. Of course, a presentation would not have any basis if I didn't put this disclaimer that these are my thoughts and not those of my employer. So we'll skip that slide. Here's where the audience participation part comes in. I would like you to raise your hand when you become uncomfortable. And I knew my audience because in a previous version of this, I had a thing that says, wait, not yet. But I took that out. Man, all right. So, we're trying to put it back, right? Lessons learned from Circle City Con. Okay, so tell me this. Raise your hand if you would be uncomfortable if anybody in the world knew your name, home address, and your phone number. Okay, some people. We realize that there are phone books out there and other apps to look this up, so maybe not that bad. How about also where you work? It could be clients that you work for, or employers that you work for, your name and your address and stuff there. Would that freak you out a little bit? Okay, let's go to this. How about daily thoughts? What you're worried about, what you're concerned. You see where we're going about this? Yeah? Okay. Pictures of your kids. Now we're starting to get a little freaky, right? We're getting into that stalking type of zone, right? And then how about this? Pictures and videos inside your house. Now that's awkward, right? That is something that would scare me. And what we're going to be talking about today is how, using open source intelligence and web applications, we can get all of these things. So stick with us. One of the things that I've noticed is that data on the internet is sometimes protected and sometimes not protected, right? When we log into a website, we expect that in order to get that data out of the website, somebody else would have to log in. They have the appropriate authority to gain access to your data. They have authorization. We don't want our data that we protect to be disclosed to the world, and yet it does. And it does so in a couple of different ways. The first is that our data gets sold. Somebody whose system we're using, it could be a free system that we're participating on, or some other type of system, decides that it's in their business model, in their business interest, to profit off of the metadata or the actual data that you're uploading to their site. Radio Shack, entering Chapter 11, bankruptcy, they looked at this as a way to get some last money out of it, selling their customer list. It's not something that's good for PR, but it happens. The next thing we have is stealing our data. We see this all the time. Anthem hacks. We saw the Adult Friend Finder, some of us saw the Adult Friend Finder website that got hacked. This is in the news all the time. And when somebody steals our data, we kind of get that feeling like, oh man, something failed, but it was beyond my control. Okay. Another one is when web applications or websites leak our data. This is where, through some misconfiguration, or as you can see in these headlines, some accident, your data, whether it was private or whether it was not, was leaked to a wider audience than was originally intended it to be leaked to. And what I want to do is I want to go through an example of data leakage. And it all started with a bicycle ride that I had with one of my friends. She and I went riding around our neighborhood. This is not a picture of that ride, as a matter of fact. But we rode around the neighborhood, and the day after, she emailed me something, and she said, hey, Micah, I wanted to let you know that I use this app. It's called Strava, and it's really cool. It tracked exactly where we rode our bikes, how fast and all you have to do is click on this link. So I always click links in emails. It's a good practice to do that. Especially if it's an email you're not expecting. So I went ahead and clicked the link. And it brought me to this page. I was like, wow, look, it shows how far we went. It shows where we went on a little map there. It tells us our elevation change. This is really cool. Then I looked at the URL. And that URL looked a little suspicious to me as a web application guy. Because it's an integer, right? I was like, wait a second, I didn't have to authenticate to this site. I just hit this URL. So I started thinking, and I think some of you guys are thinking that too. What if I was to change that number to a different number? You know, just enumerate through it. Well, let's take a look. And sure enough, I got two different activities. I thought, well, this is not good. And I started looking through the code a little bit, and I found out that you could do the same thing with the athletes, the people that actually do the rides and stuff and upload it. They're just integers, so I did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 athlete and 1, 2, 3, 5, 7. Two different people. It's like, whoa, let's look at this a little bit deeper. So this is one of the rides that I pulled up, it's ride number 80,001, and I looked at the source code, and I highlighted just some of the sections here. It has things like the name of the rider, a unique identifier for both the athlete and for their activity, which is just an integer, which is sequential, the age, the sex of the rider, the latitude, longitude of where they rode. I was like, wow, this isn't good. So I, as a good security practitioner, I decided that it was time to tell Strava. I said, hey, listen, I don't use your site. My friend does. She gave me this URL, and I wanted to let you know that you're leaking data on the internet. I know you're a company that probably cares about this, and you don't want this to go out there. So fix your URL by not making it a sequential integer-based number. I tried to do the right thing. And Strava wrote back and they said, hey, listen, you know, we're a social site, so we're always going to be able to get that data. People in the world are always going to be able to get that data from us somehow, so we don't think there's a problem. And I was like, what? What's going on here? Wait, you don't think that there's a problem? So if you don't think there's a problem, would you have any problem with me doing a talk on this? And they said, no, thanks for checking. We have no problem with you doing a talk. Strava's a social site, and I was like, okay, I got a talk for you. I got a talk. So this is what that talk is about. I felt a little bit weird, even with their email permission, going about and getting this data, right? Because I felt like, well, I might be violating my CISSP or my CEH, which I don't have anymore, but I'm not related to this or anything. But I thought, you know, I don't want to collect all this data and have all that on my system and somebody, you know, come knocking on my door and steal my computer or take my computers. So I went to Google and I found out that Google already has all the data. So I figured if Google has it, I can get it too. So how do I get it? And this is where the talk goes a little bit into the geekosity part. We have the source code here. These are predefined fields. This is JSON, just strings put together. We can search for certain strings and then look for the space after that and pull out that data. So I used a tool called Burp Suite Pro, which is a standard industry hacking tool, or web inspection tool, if you will. And what we could do is say, in this URL, I want to highlight that section there, the 80,001. And then what I want you to do, Burp, is pick 200,000 random numbers in between 80 and 240 million and submit that to the site. And I picked 240 million because there are actually 240 million of these activities posted on Strava. It's like, wow, huge numbers. So I didn't want all that data to come back and then have to do really complex things, so I told Burp, when you see things like the athlete ID field and the athlete name field, I want you to just take what's in between and pull that out. Just extract that information. And when you do that over and over again, you get something that looks like this. So I get the athlete ID, the athlete name, the athlete's gender, name, etc. And when you actually make 800,000 of these calls and collect that dictionary of events, you get something like this. For those of you in the back and with poorer vision, we have this. So we have the payload number. This is the activity ID. The type of activity, a hike, a walk, a run, a swim, whatever they want. The athlete ID, serial number for this person, first name and last name, awesome sauce. Their gender, and then the profile, which is a description of the activity. And that'll become important later on in our talk. So I have this dictionary of all this information. I was like, well, if I was evil, what would I do with that? What would somebody else do with it? And I came up with about three different questions. One, find patterns in the behaviors, all right? If people are using Strava to keep track of their rides, then I'm guessing that somebody has kept track of, I'm commuting from home to work, and maybe from work to home, or dog walks or other things. So we're going to look in the data for that. The second is, Strava has an interesting privacy bit that you can set, and it doesn't work. And I knew it didn't work, but I wanted to prove to myself that it wasn't really making the data safe, making your data safe on the site. So I thought, could I dox somebody? Could I find the real person behind this username that's on the site? And the third thing was just looking at the data and letting it tell me things. So before we do that, I did want to define a term real quick. OSINT, or OSINT, is open source intelligence. We do this all the time when we want to research something. We want to research a company to invest in, a person that we might be dating, or something else. We go to Google, we go to DuckDuckGo, we go to, I think those are the only two search engines. We go to these places and we type in a field and we go ahead and look for data about that person. We gather the information, we analyze it. Good person, bad person, this is what their activity. We do this all the time with attribution too. So that's what we're really talking about. And what people that are more evil can do with this data, especially our personal private data, is things like steal our identities, do personal, execute personal harm on us, steal from us, kidnapping in some places, because remember, we have the geographic location of where you do your weekly walks or daily runs. So this could be bad. Social engineering attacks, as we'll get to in a little while, if people are putting things up on the website that allow more disclosure of information about a person, you can gain incredible amounts of detail about that person's lifestyle and other things. Hiring people, seeing if they're above board or have any lawsuits against them or other challenging events, and of course, stalking somebody for, researching somebody for dating purposes. So let's go ahead and dive into the questions. The first question is, can we find repeated events by the same athlete, by the same person? Because if we do, then we probably can guess either where they live, or where they commute, or where they work. And the honest-to-God truth is that it's way too easy. As I mentioned, Google already has this stuff. And here we see commute home, Springvale, Victoria, Australia. When you look at it, in my data, this is the Excel spreadsheet from my dictionary, you can see multiple places. Aaron Turner up top, Alex H. here, Anthony Muller. They do this commute to and from to work every day. And when you look at it on Strava, what you see is commute to work. Here's we have a starting point and an ending point. But that really doesn't give me much, right? I mean, I can't tell you what street he lives on or anything. Strava has this thing where the longer your bike ride, the longer your walk or hike or whatever, the more zoomed out the map is. So I started thinking, I was like, well, okay, so if I can find that information, could I find out who actually did this walk when we have their usernames and really move this virtual data, this anonymous type of data, to the real world? So here we have Dan S. His username is in the upper right. We don't have a last name for this guy. Okay, Strava will do that. If you throw that privacy bit, it'll hide your last name. Ooh. So this is Dan's Wednesday morning walk. He did it in December 18th in 2013, and we can see now that he walked a short distance. We can now see the start and the end point, and we have street names. We could all go to Google Maps and pull up this section of Sunnyvale, California, and look up those street names. But let's see. This is the 13th, December 2013. If we look at another hike or walk, we see that in the following year, he did an almost identical walk, starting and ending in the same place. With those 2 points of data, I can surmise that his house might be somewhere around there. Maybe he just leaves his house and walks there, because this is a residential area. So let's go ahead and take a look at this. Now, I'm looking for one person without a last name, just an S, out of 147,559 people. That's a pretty good challenge, I think. So what we do is this is where the open source intelligence part comes in. We zoom in on an approximate place where Dan started his walk. Now, it's not the exact place, and that's okay, because Google will correct me, as we'll see in a little bit. I put a little placeholder there, and I say, hey, who lives here, essentially? So I click there. I find out that that's 1501 Flamingo Way. I put in Dan's name, Dan S., or just Dan in this case, and that value for the address. And now I get some public information coming back. We have a property valuation. These are tax data. So now, with one click, I get Daniel S. and Carolyn V. Sato. Daniel S., now I have his wife's name too, right? As an open source intelligence analyst, one of my jobs is to collect all the things. So now I have a pretty solid document here that I can trust, because it's data about the valuation of a house and stuff. So I have this information that tells me this is him and his wife. I record that in my notes for later use. And I now have confirmation that he wasn't at 1501 Flamingo Way, where I thought he might be. He's at 1507 Flamingo Way. Thank you, Googles. So if we look at this up in the Whitepages on whitepages.com, we see that Daniel Sato lives at either one of these places, and here's where we've already chosen. And when you look further on the page, we now have his home address, or his home phone number too, which is cool. And of course, since it's on Google, we can pull up a picture of his house. Now picture this. Anybody in the world can take this data, which I started on Strava, and move to the Google Street View of his house to collect information about anybody that they want. Pretty interesting stuff. And the question then becomes is, well, okay, if Strava's bleeding this way, can we actually use other things? I mean, I've seen a bunch of you out there have Fitbits or Garmin VivoFits or Apple Watches or these other exercise trackers. So my question was, could I take the usernames from these environments, from these websites, and do a similar type of information gathering effort? And the long and the short of it is, my results did vary. Some of these applications, like Fitbit, and I'm not saying go buy Fitbits, but they have very good privacy bits that you can throw and say, I want to share this information, but not that information. Strava has this big master switch that says privacy on, privacy off. And most of the time, when privacy's on, it's not really private. So I decided to take a random person from Fitbit. Now Fitbit, for those of you that have it and those of you that don't, the usernames in Fitbits are not integers. They are alphanumeric, so it's some numbers, some letters, and some numbers. But it's easily brute forceable. They're usually 5 to 7 characters long and easily brute forceable. I went ahead and just picked this one from Janna. And Janna lives, this is for those of you in the back, she lives in Saline, Michigan, which has a population of 9,000 people. So again, I'm looking for one person out of 9,000. My goal is to find out more information about Janna. So if I actually did the exact same thing I did last time, you guys would probably throw stuff at me. I saw some of you getting ready. We're not going to do that. We're going to use a different open source intelligence gathering technique. Now, Janna did the right thing. She limited a lot of the information that she was posting on Fitbit. But one of the things that she didn't limit was her pictures. And pictures are really interesting to an open source intelligence gathering person, is that I'm looking for those interesting pieces that tie people together. One of the things, if you have a Twitter account and you have an Instagram account, you might use your same avatar or same picture on multiple accounts, right? That's me, that's me, that's me. Helps people find you. Open source intelligence analysts and people stalking you know that exact trick too. So you tying things together in that manner makes it a lot easier for us to gather data about you. So this is Janna's, oh wait, does it say Janna now with a ZH? Let's take a look here. Here she put her name as Janna. Now we have Janna with a ZH. As an open source intelligence analyst, one of the things that we do is we look for those disparities. Hey, going from a J to a ZH, the zh sound, that could be, what, Russian? Or somebody in the eastern area of Europe? So we make note of that for later on. So in Google Chrome and in Firefox with a plugin, you can right-click on a picture and say, search for this picture on Google. And what it'll do is take that picture, and search for other pictures on Google like it, which can be other accounts that the person owns, which is pretty cool. In this case, we're getting Oleg Tukin, and look, Janna Mishinkova. Now we have her last name. Did Fitbit hiding her last name help us? No, it didn't hurt us at all. We can find that information. But we also have Oleg Tukin with her face on it. Why is that? Anyone? Significant other? Yeah, this is a person that when you look at Oleg Tukin's Google Plus page, Google Plus, really? I mean, when you look at Oleg Tukin's Google Plus page, in the lower right-hand corner it'll say, this person's also connected to Janna Mishinkova. So I now have a connection between these two people, right? A relationship of some sort. All right, so now I have her full last name. I have somebody that might be a significant other. If we go ahead and Google Janna Mishinkova in Salem, Michigan, the Googles know all about her. You can have a whole bunch of information. More information about Oleg Tukin and even Oleg Tokiny, or I'm sure I'm butchering that name. But look, Janna has a Foursquare. She's got a lot of information that's out there on the internet. If we go to Whitepages.com, which is a trustworthy site to look at this stuff, we see Oleg Tukin has this phone number, he lives in that place, in this address, and here are some other aliases that may be related. Pretty easy, right? So taking a username, we can get information about the people and their relationships. So if that's the case, how creepy can we really get it? How far can we go digging into some random person's life on the internet that's really pushing all this data out there? Before we do that, and I start creeping you out, the thing that I want to make sure you understand is that we really have a double standard when it comes to our data, right? When I first threw the slides up there about people stealing our data, people selling our data, I don't know if you did, but I mean, I start getting all like, how dare they? But the reality is that we share a lot of information, whether we know it or whether we don't. A lot of people are in religious organizations that have a monthly newsletter. Do they publish information about your name? Or a Boy Scout or Girl Scout troop posting pictures, and underneath it is Jane S. from so-and-so and doing her Girl Scout cookies at this Safeway that's near her house. There's so many things out there where we have information either published about us or where we publish information that we're doing this death by 1,000 cuts ourselves. We make it so easy for other people to do this. And kind of an extreme form of that is some people that I call oversharers. Oversharers think the internet is their private home network, where they take and push all this data up there. Here's what I'm eating now. Here's how it tasted. Here's who I'm eating it with. I mean, it's a lot of information. They put it up there, not understanding or not caring about the implications. So Alfred Adler, a psychologist, had a theory, actually has a whole line of thought, that is that people have a need to belong to a group. And when you don't have a group that you belong to, you seek out people that can become that group. And so what I did was I went to the Googles, and just to show you that I used both search engines, I went to DuckDuckGo also, and I typed in, I need some Fitbit friends, because there are people that say this and post it to Google and DuckDuckGoable blogs, or in other places. And we have page upon page of this type of thing. Here, my Fitbit is here. Yay, be my friend. And they give away their information, their usernames, and other information, as we'll see. So let's take this information for a PBJ mama here, and we're going to drill down on Trisha. That didn't come out right. We're going to do some research. Can we go back in the recording? Crap. We're going to go and look at Trisha's profile, all right? So the first thing we do is, now Trisha is an oversharer. This is my professional opinion. She's an oversharer. She has information about her likes, her feelings. All of her emotions just come out and are on her pages. So this is Spark People. Spark People is about fitness. It's about dieting. It's about getting that support you need to help you lose weight, get in shape, or achieve some kind of personal goal. And so, PBJ Mama, and again, we have a picture here. Could we use that to search on Google? Absolutely. Find other accounts? Sure. So, Trisha has this page, and here in her profile, she gives us a lot of information about what her goals are, what she's doing, and then here in the bottom, she tells us where she lives. She gives us her YouTube page, which looks like this. And she's a prolific vlogger, video blogger. In fact, she's such a prolific vlogger that watching these videos is an incredible amount of information about her and her family. Why? These videos are shot in her house. When you have your phone and you're going around and video blogging, and you're like, oh, you know what, I'm thinking that today I'm going to, do some exercise. Some people focus on the person's face. I'm looking at what's behind them. Hey, do they have expensive furniture or pictures on the wall? Do they have toys there that might indicate small children? And this is what pictures and videos inside your house might be getting on the internet, if you are one of those people that does the vlogging. So here we have that. Now, as far as a social engineering person, anybody done social engineering? Okay. So here we have Trisha holding up her cell phone to the camera saying, hey, check this out. And in the upper right here, we have that she's on the Rogers cell phone network. Now, the way that we exploit people is by gaining their trust, right? When you're social engineering something, the more you can get somebody to trust you, the more willing you are to go along with whatever they want you to do. Hey, Trisha, yeah, this is Micah. I'm calling from the Canada Rogers cell phone company. Yeah, do you have a Samsung whatever there? Yeah, oh yeah, you're having problems with it. Come visit my page. All you need to do is I've established trust, and now I may be able to get her to click on something or download some malware, etc. Could you do it with some other things in her house, her computer, Absolutely. Gaining trust. Of course, since she gave us where she lives in Canada, we can go ahead and pull her up. There's her address, her phone number. That's what her house looks like. Now think about this. Anybody around the world can now look and go, okay, Trisha's probably got either a minivan or this or both. Maybe lives in a duplex house on a corner. Again, gaining trust, understanding what your target looks like. Think about this as far as espionage. Somebody trying to do something, maybe do kidnapping or theft. You're actually scouting out her house without even leaving the comfort of your home. As an oversharer, Trisha's business life is also on the internet. Here, her LinkedIn page, open to the world, shows that she is a member of this company. Here's the page where she not only gives out her telephone and fax number, cute, and her email, but we have a bio of her, what her experience is, what her, why you should hire her, etc. And if that wasn't enough, Facebook is actually open. We have pictures. There's all of her kids. It gets really overwhelming. We have all of her likes and dislikes. What if I wanted to go ahead and compromise her home network by sending her something like a Cake Boss DVD? That's a special DVD that when you put it into your computer or other system, it does interesting things. Could we do that? Heck yeah. And now we know what she would and would not accept, right? Because these are her likes and stuff. So, Trisha, we've got all these things on her. She is the perfect social engineering target. Identity theft target, property theft target, absolutely. So if I just left it with DuckDuckGoing it and Googling it, you guys would, again, probably throw stuff at me. So I'm going to take it a little deeper. As an intelligence, open source intelligence gatherer, I've found that keeping track of things in a serial manner in Notepad++, TextPad, or whatever your text-based tool is, was insufficient. Because invariably, you have things that are related, you have things that go down a dead end, you want to explore, and then maybe you want to come back up. So I started experimenting with mind maps. It's a free technology that you can use to visually organize your data. You can take notes on here, do other diagrams, etc. Mind maps are great for people like me that think visually, that learn visually as well. So this is what it looks like if we drill down. We can have separate branches. This is for her work stuff. We can paste in pictures. We can put in their PDF documents, link other things to it. And again, we're putting all of the different pieces of Trisha into one document that presents a very compelling picture of how much she's oversharing her life. One of the things that I like to do is harvest people's usernames. Not their passwords, but their usernames. Because it's human nature, right? I'm Web Breacher. You can see that at the bottom of my slide there. And yeah, I have a Twitter account that's Web Breacher. And, well, you're probably right if you guessed. I've got a GitHub page that's also Web Breacher. And I have another account that's Web Breacher. I use that same username across multiple sites. I'm sure many of you do too. So what if we could take these 3 usernames, PBJ Mommy, Trisha Dono, and Missy Trish, I can't even pronounce that. What if we could take those and search the web for those without using Google? Enter Recon-ng. Recon-ng is a tool that Tim Tomes created. It's a Python-based tool, and it's really cool at doing reconnaissance. It leverages open source repositories and websites out there on the interwebs. There's different modules that allow you to not only collect things about people, but also to crack passwords, to do location-based information. Saying within this 1 kilometer radius, show me all the tweets that are there. So if maybe there's an important building or house or school, who's tweeting from that location with geolocation turned on? It's some pretty cool stuff. What I do is I wrote a module called Profiler, and what you do is you take this piece right here, you take the usernames that you want to search, and you put it into this tool, and then you type run. And when you type run, it will search over 190 sites per username. And to do 3 usernames, it took 30 seconds on my home network. 3 usernames, 190 sites each. And what you do is it will give you back information. Hey, I think we have a problem match here on eBay or on Gravatar. The repository of sites that I have it checking is everything from normal social media sites like Instagram or Twitter to some of the sites that, well, if your employer or your spouse or somebody else knew about it, you might be a little embarrassed if your username was used on Adult Friend Finder, or even some pornographic sites this taps into, dating sites, other things. And the idea is that, hey, this information's out there on the internet anyway, right? All I'm doing is saying, you know what, there may be a person that you care about that has PBJ Mama as a username at that URL. And at the end, after it finishes, this is what it looks like. We have a nice little table that says, here's the usernames, there's the resource or the website, here's the URL. You, as the analyst, go take a look at it and see if this is the actual person. Because let's face it, if the username was J Doe, that might have a lot of false positives. It might be not the right J Doe. So what I do as an analyst is take all those URLs and then go ahead and see what happens, see if the sites that they lead me to give me anything good. Compile it. Lather, rinse, repeat. This whole process is on my blog, which is at the bottom of the page there. If you just want to look up the Profiler module, it tells you how to run it soup to nuts. So with that said, one of the other questions that I asked originally was, pause for a dramatic effect and drink. What if I just looked at the Strava data and just looked at those descriptions, right? Is there anything cool in there that would pop out? And sure enough, I found out that Strava wasn't just used to track runs and bicycle rides and things like that. A word came up over and over and over again. I saw patrol, patrol, patrol. I was like, what is this patrol thing? You know, little kids with sashes that are fluorescent that are telling you to walk across the street? That's just weak. So I drilled down on one of these, and I was like, well, okay, let's take a look at this clever patrol from the user Tilbury B. And I see this interesting arc, and the start and finish in the same place, so that means that they probably did an out and back. Okay. And so what I did was I queued on this little area here. I'm sorry that's not coming across well. It's a little street that dead ends there. If we go ahead and look at it in Google, we can zoom in, and it's a very distinctive feature. So it's real easy to pull it out. And if we look at it with satellite view, we see it's Tilbury Power Substation. So let me get this straight, all right? So some company in the UK has thought this is going to be good. In order to track our security guards are actually walking their routes, we're going to use a free application that doesn't protect their data. And we're going to not only do this, but we're going to have them put their names, the dates, and the times of the actual patrols in the record for anybody in the world to see. Thank you very much, right? I mean, this is awesome. The behavior here, again, I only took 800,000 records out of 250 million at this point, but I've only seen this in the UK, so it does appear to be one or more UK security companies, but here's another one, Dominic and Alan. Now, As far as social engineering goes, would this not be excellent if Dominic and Alan went on the regular 4:25 in the morning walk, and you walked up to the guard at the regular gate, go, yeah, Dominic sent me, he had a problem, he needs you to go out there. Okay, he goes out there and you walk into whatever facility they're guarding. Absolutely. So here we have one. Dominic and Alan are patrolling the Ripple Nature Reserve, and I thought, cool, nature reserve, there's some guards there. No, it's another power substation. So over and over again, it was like this. But then I found this. Britbit soft drinks. Again, dates, times, names of people. And if we look at one of these, we see that it's a curious rectangle right near the Chelmsford Cemetery. We go into Google's Chelmsford Cemetery, and look, we find an interesting rectangular-shaped building. If we drill down on that, we now see the Britvic soft drink company over there in the UK. Oh, that was probably bad. Sorry. The Britvic software. So this is not only substations that manage our power, but commercial entities as well. So as an open source intelligence analyst, as somebody that cares about the internet, does Strava have a problem? Yeah, because the users aren't just using this for running and hiking. Now, is this Strava's problem, or the business that's actually using it for this purpose's problem? I would say it's both, right? Because somebody's not protecting the data in general, and then somebody else is using something that they shouldn't be using for something that it's not meant to be. So, I thought that was really cool, because from my home in Maryland, I could sit there and go, well, that's probably about, and you see ISSPs out here, that's probably a 6-foot-high chain link, triple chain link fence with a barbed wire facing in. So, yeah, it's kind of an interesting thing. So then we have other things in the data that were interesting, to say the least. I looked for things, and some of the things stuck out at me, like this birdless bird hunt. So Ben in Hartford, Connecticut, West Hartford, Connecticut, went on a birdless bird hunt. Now, I've never gone hunting in my life, but I would imagine if I go on a birdless bird hunt, that's probably a walk, right? That's like a hike. It's not really a bird hunt. And then there were things that I just had no idea. I don't even know what the hell. Hairy legs and chocolate salty balls. The only thing I can think of is that after 92 miles with a suffer score of 232, whatever that means, it's in red, so it's got to be bad. Dude was delirious or had watched a lot of South Park, and so he pasted it up there. So it's kind of funny stuff. So let's bring it back to you all. You know, if you were to do, because all the things I did here, there's no special sauce. You could take all of this information that I've talked about today and go and do profiles on yourself, your family, your loved ones, your unloved ones. You could do all of that stuff. And you know what? As an open source intelligence person, what I find is that if I want to do research on you or research on you, I'm not going to go after your Facebook profile because you probably got to tighten down, or your Twitter profile because it might be restricted. Who will I go after? Your significant others, right. Because your wife, your daughter, your husband, your kids are not protecting their systems, their accounts, as well as you are. And who are they going to have pictures of in their accounts? You all, right? They're taking pictures of you doing things. So if I want pictures of you doing something interesting at the beach last week, I'm going to look at your wife's profile and then get in through there. I had an interesting anecdote. A person at work came to me and he said, you know, Micah, I know you do this open source intelligence stuff, and that's cool and all, but there's no way you could get anything on me. I've checked and there's nothing. I said, really, do you want to do this right now? He said, yeah. I said, I have your permission to go ahead and dive into your online profile. He said, yeah, go ahead. So I said to him, okay, well, let me take your name and Google it, DuckDuckGo it, and on the first screen that came back, there was stuff there that he saw that I was just missing. And he's like, you already missed stuff. I'm like, all right, give me some time. So I went ahead and looked, and I found a tax document for his house, which had his wife's address on it as well, or wife's full name. I said, so is this your wife? He goes, yeah, that's her wife. That's my wife. So then I took that, went to her Facebook page, and on her Facebook page, he was a connection. There were pictures of their kids and inside their house, and all of the stuff here that we see in overshares, I had access to. And this was within 10 minutes. It's not hard. And that's my message to you all, is that this is not rocket science. And the world does not need to know all of this stuff about you. Sure, some of it you can't prevent from being out there. You do a run for some local race, they're going to post your name, your age, because you're grouped according to your age and your gender, and then your race times. You can't stop that. But there is stuff that's in your control. And that's my talk. The WebReacherblogspot.com page is my website. I have a bunch of this stuff on there and some other things, as well as pictures from my hiking trips as well. So I'll open this up to questions. Yes, sir.
Did you find a way to, or did you at all go through, you said there was GPS data and Strava stuff, did you look through that at all to say, look if any of your company's buildings might have had GPS data in there or anything along that line?
So I'll summarize that. The question was, is inside of the source code for Strava's pages, it does push out the GPS coordinates of where the ride went, which, if I wanted to, I could compile it and say, hey, not only did this person go from here to here, but here's the GPS location of his work or anything. I did not find a way, because I really wanted to keep this light and professional. I didn't find a way to query the server and pull back just the GPS location data. What I could have done is pulled out the GPS data and then plotted all of the places where people, where the start and end of the rides were. That was a little bit more effort than I wanted to do. But I mean, it's absolutely possible. In fact, there's a whole API that if you look in the source code, it says, /API and then lat long. It gives you it right there. It would be trivial to do. Yes, sir.
I saw when you were talking about the fitbit, you had Map My Ride.
Uh-huh.
Is that one that as?
So in one of the iterations of this talk, I actually went through and did a comparison. I said, for Map My Ride, Map My Run, Map My Ride, Map My Walk, Map My Fitness, all of those things are the exact same site with different skins on the front of them, so they do different colors. And I actually looked at, if I create a default account, what can I see that is, what information are they bleeding, and then turn on all of the security, and what can I now see? And I honestly don't remember about the Map My Run, Map My Fitness, but the neat thing is that you can do it at home. You have one browser with that logged in, and then in another web browser, you go ahead and on your computer, you visit your profile or one of the runs or walks you've done, and just look at the source code, see what comes back. Sorry, I don't have that answer. Anybody else? Question in the back, sir.
So does Trish know that she's being used as an example?
Well played, sir. Well played. So the question is that I use 3 people as my subjects, my examples. Do they know that they are the examples in this talk? And I thought about that long and hard before I gave this first talk back in February. And my answer is no, they probably don't. And the reason is how weird would it be if you got a phone call or an email or something like, hey Trish, yeah, this is Micah in Maryland. You don't know me, but I have a presentation with your entire life and your pictures of your kid inside your house. You okay with me presenting? I'm thinking that conversation might go a little differently. So no, I don't have that. But you know what? What makes me more comfortable is that she is sharing with the world, and really it's the matter of compiling and analyzing and putting all these pieces together. That really makes this scary. I know there's a lot of organizations that do this for attribution, for malware attacks or other attacks against the company. They try to figure out who did it, in what building do they work, etc. Cool. There was just a thing, I don't know if you saw it, with building got blown up or the United States Air Force blew up a building in a foreign country because the person of interest inside that building did a tweet from that building and it had geolocation tagged on it. So it was confirmed, and then they launched the fighters and blew up the building, and so they used this for targeting. So I'm not going to blow up anybody or anything, but no, I didn't get their permission because they're sharing. Yes, sir. Photobomb? Played. Shmoo balls in the back, please. Yes, sir.
When you have people with really extremely common names, what do you use to correlate some of that info?
That's an excellent question. The question is when you have somebody with a common name, how do you correlate the information? It's extremely challenging to do things like John Doe, John Smith, Micah. Well, you know, even with a very uncommon one of those names, it's sometimes very challenging. And what we do is what I'll do is I'll act more like a vacuum. I will suck up as much data as I can through automated and manual processes about anybody that could be this person. I can use a tool like Maltego, which will help me map and show relationships between data. And then I look for those commonalities. Hey, look, this person uses the same pictures across multiple sites. I had a job that I did in for my company where just that last week they gave me a phone number and they say, who owns this? And I took that phone number and I went to a couple places and I found two guys that had the same, that were both noted as having the phone number. And I was like, well, let's just go one path. So I gathered more information about one of the people and get more information, and then bam, the last piece of information showed that he worked for the company that I was looking for, and that was the person. But it very well could be the people with common names are the hardest ones to find information about because there's so much misinformation and disinformation out there. So change your name to John Smith. Yeah, yes, sir.
Different sites. So is there any best practice you would recommend?
Yeah.
I'm not saying that you stop using social sites.
You know, in our society, so the question is how do you prevent this? How do you minimize your risk, your family's risk, to somebody one day discovering that the person that has the Twitter handle of this also has dating sites and something in a more embarrassing place? And the idea is to use the things that are in this talk, use the things that you know that are important to you against yourself. Break those cycles. So if I use common photos to link multiple accounts, don't use the same avatar on multiple sites. Now, that will decrease people's ability to find you. But I heard somebody, I'm not sure if they're in this room, they said an interesting thing, that they have a very unique name. But on Facebook, instead of using their name in UTF-8 characters, they switched one of the characters to another character set. So when you search for whatever their name is, it doesn't come up because you're not using the right character set for one of the characters. I thought, dude, rock on, that's awesome. But yeah, use different usernames. Hey, this is my professional world, I'm using WebReacher. In my private world, I have different usernames that I use. Now, that's not saying that you can't find out what those usernames are, but it makes it a little bit more challenging to say, that is the right Micah Hoffman. So I would say that, turn on those privacy bits for whatever service that you use and your family uses, because it's not you that's vulnerable, it's the people around you as well. Okay? Any more questions? All right. Thank you very much, everybody.